tribute from subject tribes poured in, filling the empire's coffers and crowding the city's great market.
Every day there are all kinds of merchandise from all the provinces. Jewels of gold and silver, precious stones, many colored feathers, slaves reside and waiting. Maize, beans, cocoa, peppers, onions, and 1,000 kinds of green stuff. Bernal Diaz.
As wealthy and powerful as the Aztecs were, they waged war not only for land or gold, but for the blood and hearts of prisoners to be sacrificed to the pantheon of angry and vengeful gods. Aztec priests conducted human sacrifice on a scale unseen in the history of man. They believed that human blood was a god's proper nourishment, and their bewildering array of over 1,500 deities required a steady diet of victims.
The Aztecs thought that the universe was going to end, and the only way to keep it going was through the human sacrifice. The main reason was a religious belief that if you didn't sacrifice people, the world would finish, will end.
Children were sacrificed to the rain god, their tears ensuring a bountiful sky. Priests, their hair matted with blood, wearing the flayed human skins of victims, celebrated the god of spring. Using obsidian knives, the priests ripped out still-beating hearts as gifts to the hungry gods. During special festivals, thousands of the innocent were led to a gory death on the steps of Tenochtitlan's great temple. In 1494, it was claimed as many as 20,000 hearts were torn out over a period of only 4 days. Some scholars now regard these numbers as an exaggeration.
What does one do with 20,000 cadavers minus a heart? I mean, the logistics of this thing is just absolutely overwhelming. The question that you have to ask here is, oh really? How did they do this?
Aztec sacrifice, I think, has probably been overemphasized in analyses of Aztec religion. There was human sacrifice. The purpose was not to deny human life. The purpose was to propitiate the gods.
At the center of the Aztec world was the king, Moctezuma. Revered like a god, Moctezuma had 3,000 servants and over 1,000 wives and concubines. It was forbidden, punishable by death, to look at his face, touch him, or turn one's back on him. Every aspect of Moctezuma's life was attended to with great ceremony.
When he began his meals, they placed in front of him a sort of wooden screen richly decorated with gold, so that no one could see him eat. Bernal Diaz.
As head of the Aztec royal family, Moctezuma was all-powerful, but he was also troubled. He believed and feared an ancient prophecy which foretold the return of a white god named Quetzalcoatl, that long ago had come and gone.
When he left, he promised that he would return someday. And interestingly enough, his physical characteristics were a fair-complected man with a beard. And this would later prove of certain significance in the conquest of Mexico.
In 1519, the omens gave way to reality as word came from the coast of floating temples upon the sea. Moctezuma was struck with trepidation when he heard the descriptions of the men who sailed in these ships.
Our Lord and King, it is true that strange people have come to the shores of the Great Sea. They have light skin, much lighter than ours. The Crónica Mexicana.
The representation of Quetzalcoatlus in statuary was a face that had a beard and looking at, and I would say, coming from a turtle's mouth, which is very Mesoamerican, but it also could be from a Spanish morion with, the hard hat. This could also make one think, well, hey, this person looks an awful lot like the representation of Quetzalcoatlus.
Moctezuma moaned and wailed in his despair. Sure, the strangers were sent by the god Quetzalcoatl to reclaim his kingdom. Rather than fight, Moctezuma sent emissaries to greet the white-skinned gods from the east and beg them to go away. But the newcomers weren't gods at all, just a few hundred Spaniards. But they were led by Hernán Cortés, a man destined to become the greatest of the conquistadors. On Good Friday, April 22nd, 1519, Spanish explorer Hernán Cortés arrived from Cuba and planted a cross and the red and gold banner of Spain in the Mexican sand, creating a town he called Villa-Rica de Veracruz, the city of the true cross. In doing so, the stage was set for a clash of civilizations. Hernán Cortés was one of many poor young Spaniards who had come to the New World in search of both glory and gold.
These folks were merchants, maritime people, explorers, outcasts, those kind of folks that you don't necessarily like to associate with in polite company. These people are men of arms because in the 16th century, Europe is a very dangerous place, and everybody who was anybody walked around armed if you could use the weapon, and if you didn't or couldn't use a weapon, then you cowered an awful lot. It was not a nice place. People coming from not a nice place tend to be not nice.
Cortés had arrived in the Western Hemisphere at the dawn of an age of great discovery. The Pope had split the New World between the Spanish and Portuguese to spread Western civilization and the Christian gospel to the Americas. In Cuba, Cortés acquired great wealth using his guile to become protégé and secretary to the Cuban governor, Diego Velázquez, delegate of the King of Spain. The governor named Cortés to command an exploration of the mysterious land to the west, Mexico. Cortés bought a small fleet and raised a 500-man mercenary army. There would be no pay, only the promise of gold, glory, and service to God.
Cortés was in many ways the quintessential Spanish conqueror. He was very smart, but not pensive or intellectual. He was much more a man of action. He had a large ego. He was fearless. He was a person who commanded respect and demanded respect. He was very much a man of his age, and he was the perfect conqueror, the man who was determined to accomplish what he set out to do.
But Cortés almost lost his mission before he set sail. Governor Velázquez grew suspicious of Cortés' loyalty. His suspicions were well-founded, but the messenger he sent to order a stop to the mission got to Cuba too late. Cortés and his men had already set sail. Cortés sailed along the Yucatan to the region of Tabasco, occasionally going ashore to battle the natives. After several unsuccessful skirmishes, local Indian tribes finally sought to appease Cortés, bringing gifts of fruit, maize, cloaks, and young women. One was named Marina by the Spaniards. She spoke both Mayan and Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs. Marina would serve as an invaluable interpreter, as well as Cortes' mistress, becoming one of the most controversial figures in Mexican history. A traitor to some, hero to others.
What she is a very intelligent, very wily person. And just think of what she was able to do. She was able to translate between the Indian dialects and Spanish. She was able to negotiate two cultures. She was able to handle all that. So she must have been very talented. And let's not make her the villain because she was used by this imperial power. Let's appreciate her for what she actually did, which was quite a lot, and not blame her for the conquest.
On the Gulf Coast, directly opposite Tenochtitlan, where Cortes created Veracruz, there was no town, only empty beach. But for the clever Spaniard, it was a way to assume control of his own destiny and expand his mission as Captain General of a town that did not even exist.
Cortes knew that once he was on the high seas, he was outside of the law. So when he created the royal city of Veracruz on Good Friday, and thus the name, the Villa of the True Cross, he was stepping back inside of the law. And then creating the town council of Veracruz, there was nothing there except the beach, but he, on paper, had created an entity. And it was that entity, the Ayuntamiento of Veracruz, that authorized him to lead them into the interior.